All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this opportunity to share this person with you because I love them a real lot, and I think they're tremendously, endlessly fascinating. A little overview before I introduce them. This individual has taught on 5 different continents. She has been working professionally in her field since 1980. She has worked sometime at the White House. She was a key member in some early response work to both 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina. She's also an Emmy winner and has accepted Tonys on behalf of a place that she works. She has shared scenes with Sonia Sotomayor, Whoopi Goldberg, NSYNC, Common, and a lot of her time is spent with Elmo. It's Pam Arciero. She is a very talented puppeteer who's been working at Sesame Street since 1982. She started her career, her education with puppetry when she was in her undergraduate at the University of Hawaii. She was actually there to be a dance and drama major, broke her leg, and some folks realized as she was trying to do choreography on one leg with a broken cast, that she was doing some really funny stuff, and they said, you should be on our puppet show. And that snowballed into a career of, now she performs sheep playing the guitar. But anyway, so she went on to receive her MFA in puppetry from the University of Connecticut, and as I said before, began at Sesame Street in 1982 as the first of only 2 female puppeteers on the show. Sesame Street was founded in 1969, so the show had been on for about 15 years, and she was female number 2, which is pretty sad. But she's performed in over 2,500 of Sesame Street's 4,000 episodes since 1982. Just last week, she celebrated 40 years on the show, and she also trains new puppeteers both for the domestic version of the show, so the new puppeteers who are working on our Sesame Street, but there's also approximately 2 or 3 dozen versions of Sesame Street internationally throughout the world. And when a new program crops up or it has some staffing changes, she will travel around the world to work with those puppeteers as well. Outside of Sesame, she also is a theater director and works very routinely with other puppeteers, other writers, trying to really elevate and uplift all sorts of diverse voices in the way that she was brought up as well. She's the artistic director of the O'Neill National Puppetry Conference. That is a theater conference held once a year at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center in Waterford, Connecticut. They have all sorts of conferences for different kinds of theatrical disciplines, where Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote In the Heights. It's where Bobby Lopez wrote Avenue Q, and it's where a lot of really talented puppeteers often cut their teeth each summer. She sits on the board of the Jim Henson Foundation and teaches collegiate puppetry throughout the United States and internationally, which is how she got onto all those continents, as I mentioned before. This is a picture of me and Pam at the O'Neill from about 10 years and 50 pounds ago. And I first met her in 2011 when she accepted my stalkery Facebook request and invited me to visit Sesame Street, so that kind of kicked off our relationship together. And I've been to the O'Neill a handful of times where I've gotten to meet and work with her. This is just some of the beautiful puppetry that happens at the O'Neill Center, and it's a wonderful place. You should look it up a little bit. But so when I asked her about her leadership philosophy, she was able to point to 2 very specific tenets that she likes to uphold: the importance of listening and of trust. And she was able to point to a number of different situations in her upbringing and in her experiences that really illustrated these 2 points quite nicely. So at the O'Neill, again, this is a place, where am I in that? I can't remember. Anyway, I'm in that group somewhere but it's a lot of people coming to one place, sort of invading this bucolic oceanside area for a week, and all these people need to work together and sweat together and create art together. So she said it's really important for her to make sure that all these people are on the same page. And she says, I work very hard to make sure that the groups and the energies and the people who come to the O'Neill all get along together, that we're doing as much as possible. She said, I challenge myself to know who everybody is before they get there, because creating that puppetry community is so vital to me. And I've seen it happen when new people who are there for the first time walk in. She knows everything about them because she's studied their CVs. She's gotten to know their work on YouTube or what have you. So when she meets them for the very first time, she already feels like that maternal person who has known you for years and years and years. It's a wonderful thing to witness and to receive as well. But that comes from the listening. This is her working and training up puppeteers for production of Avenue Q. As I mentioned, she does directing all throughout the country, and she said this is where she's able to really exercise the importance of trust, because she's not going to be able to be there when people are performing and acting out on the stage. So she knows that she can't handhold people for too long. She needs to trust them that they're going to be able to work to the best of their abilities. So she said about this, I don't tell a puppeteer how to make the puppet move. I tell you what I want the character to do, maybe what I think you might want to try, because ultimately you remember that more than if I'm imposing my directorial will onto you. And again, I think this is, obviously she's talking specifically about puppetry, but it's an applicable concept to a much larger degree about giving people the space. It's kind of the Y mentality as opposed to an X mentality of making sure that people are able to have that freedom. And she said it allows for more spontaneous things to happen, for improv moments to happen that she could have never expected beforehand. Now, when I asked her about how she learned to lead and who some of her mentors were, she really reflected on her time at Sesame and at these different places. She said, I was taught wonderful things by wonderful people, and I feel it's so important to continue that tradition, to ensure that the art form doesn't die, that it gets better and better and better and better, and that young people have the skills to continue it on. And she really learned this from some main people. Kermit Love, no relation to the frog. The frog existed before Jim ever met Kermit, but Kermit built and maintained all of the full-bodied characters at Sesame Street. So he built the first Big Bird, the first Mr. Snuffleupagus, and he met Pam when she was at the University of Hawaii, just learning about the puppetry club and Yukon and all these different things. And he allowed her to shadow him on the set of Sesame Street when he was working there. Lisa Simon was a producer, then eventually a director at Sesame Street, and Richard Hunt was one of the original 5 Muppet performers who, by the time Pam got there in '82, was really in charge of training up all of these puppeteers, this new crop. And she said, just watching these 3 individuals do what they did and giving her the space to bear witness to that was incredibly valuable, and she tries to give that to other people. I've been a benefactor of that. As I mentioned, being able to just sit on Sesame Street and watch a show day was really incredible. She also had a very cool story that I think is emblematic of both Mr. Henson here, as well as kind of how Pam encourages us to create. So there was a day in the early '80s, Pam wasn't too new to the show, and there was a lighting cue that needed to be set up. So Jim took the 7 or 8 puppeteers who were around, and he said, I just want to experiment doing hand puppets with your hands. And all the puppeteers kind of gathered around, and they started doing all these different things. And she thought it was strange. She didn't think much of it, but she said Jim was always thinking about things down the road. Cut to 1986. Oh, this is, that would have helped when the downtime on Sesame Street, but that's Pam in the late 80s. But cut to 1986, and the Labyrinth movie comes out. And there's this scene where Jennifer Connelly is falling down a giant well of these hands, and they're all doing these faces that they just came up with in the moment of experimentation and of play on Sesame Street. And she said, you know, all these hand motions that we came up with, and he was documenting and clicking it in his head, and was able to put it in this wild, crazy world of imagination. And she just said that that was a moment that always stuck with her in watching leadership in action. I also asked her about an important experience that she personally had. And she talked about working on the South African version of Sesame Street, specifically because that show they have, as you can see there, they have their own original characters as well as characters like Elmo, Bert, and Ernie, and Grover. And she said that trying to explain why Grover is funny to people in other cultures is actually really difficult because it's kind of based on him thinking that he knows everything. And she specifically said, like, well, you know, in a lot of cultures, like, the men are always right. And, you know, even if they're right or they're wrong, they're always right. And she said, so trying to get young people to find the humor in that can be really difficult. So she says that it taught her that in any foreign country that she works in, that she's always checking in and asking folks, am I understanding what the sense of humor is? Is this funny? Is this funny? Is that the right way to go? And she said, I think the most important thing to do in those instances is to check in on the people you're working with, ensuring that everyone's on that same page. And again, it's that trust in what the other people are saying and listening to that and responding in this really, really beautiful way and making sure that Grover could be Grover, but also that he's respecting the culture of wherever in the world that he is at. So making connections to the class, I think it's, I thought it to be pretty evident that Pam is a servant leader. She has these wonderful qualities of caring and serving, listening receptively to the people that she works with, working towards a common good and keeping the art form alive, the awareness of the group, stewardship, growth of people, and community. And I specifically can point to, as I said, the caring and the serving when she goes out with the puppet characters she's identified with and going and first responding to really horrific situations like going and meeting the children who lost their parents during 9/11 or Hurricane Katrina. Listen receptively, as I illustrated with that example with Grover. Dealing with the common good of being on a show like Sesame Street for 40 years where she could be making a lot more money doing a lot of different things because it's been public television for most of that time, but she knows that there's a common good to working on that show. Having an awareness of the group, as I described with the O'Neill Conference, stewardship and bringing up new voices, and working at the Jim Henson Foundation where they're literally putting money where their mouths are. Watching the growth of people like this guy, and facilitating that community wherever she goes. So again, I thank you for your time and listening to me talk about Pam a little bit, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Good.
One question.
Yeah.
Please.
I never knew that you actually had puppeteers like operating the Sesame characters.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought they were all just like sticks and strings. But who does their voices?
The puppeteers do. So, so they're laying on the floor and they've got their hands up in the characters and they're doing all of the vocal performance while they're manipulating. And what's cool about Pam is that while I mentioned Grangetta is sort of her number one character, I don't know if those characters are particularly familiar to you. Pam's a workhorse. She does a lot of what's called right-handing or doubling. So a character like Cookie Monster, who has two hands, she will often right-hand Cookie Monster so that the main performer is able to perform the head and the left hand and then fill out the body with Pam's right hand. but also certain characters like Bert and Grover are performed by the same puppeteer. So Pam knows all of the movements and mannerisms of both of those characters. So when Bert and Grover are in the same scene and they have to talk to each other, she can double for whichever character has less lines, and then they dub the voiceover after, or the puppeteers voice it in real time.
Yeah, a lot of work.
It is, and it's to me, it's the coolest kind of work you could do. But yeah, they're all incredible. Brian, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I just, maybe I missed what MFA is?
I'm sorry?
MFA?
Oh, Masters of Fine Arts.
Okay,
I apologize if I didn't make that clear. But yeah, she got her master's in puppetry
okay.
from UConn.
I didn't know I had degrees for something, but this is so interesting.
They do.
So I'm incredibly curious about this. Are there any documentaries that tell the stories of these puppeteers?
There, I could get you a whole watch list. Yeah, there's so there's a couple documentaries about Sesame Street and behind the scenes and the formation of that show, particularly Street Gang on HBO, which goes into great detail about Sesame's connection with the civil rights movement at the end of at the midpoint of the 1960s. But that's very good. There's a documentary about it's called Being Elmo, about Kevin Clash, who was the, not the first Elmo puppeteer, but the originator of Elmo as we know him to be. There's I Am Big Bird, which is about Carol Spinney, who performed Big Bird for 50 seasons on Sesame Street, and his lovely wife, Debbie, and their love story, and Jim Henson has a bunch there. Actually, there's going to be a Jim Henson documentary coming out at the end of this year that Ron Howard is directing, and we're all very excited for that one. We're hoping it's like 8 hours long, because, yeah. But there's plenty more. I'm happy to share a whole watch list, as I said.
How did you get exposed to her? 'Cause I know you said like you stalked her, Facebook post, but like how did you like know who she was, like that type of thing?
Oh, so I was a weird kid, and so one of those documentaries I had since I was like 4 years old. So like
Okay.
at the same time I'm watching the Muppet movie and stuff, I'm
Right.
also watching the making of Sesame Street and the Dark Crystal and the Muppet movie. So they're literally like, I'm seeing the same scenes and they're pulling the camera back, and it's like, oh my gosh, look at all those
Credits,
people.
right? Got you.
And I had multiple coffee table books in which she is a prominent character in, so I knew the name to search up on Facebook, and I did that with a number of people. And I still remember the day in January of 2011 when I woke up in the middle of the night and was like, oh my gosh, Pam Arciero accepted your friend request. And so yeah, slid into her DMs.